Senator Markwayne Mullin is also headed to the RNC convention later today, but first he joins us now live this morning to talk about the recent assassination attempt over the weekend of President Donald Trump. Senator, thanks for being with us. What questions about this weekend's events do you have still this morning?
Well, really, when we start talking about the Secret Service and the failure, what happened, I think that a full debrief needs to be taking place here, because when you look into security or securing a site like this, there's usually three perimeters, and the outer perimeter is usually local law enforcement. Inner perimeter is more your technical groups, some of your SWAT teams, maybe National Guard, and then the inner circle will be the Secret Service, but the Secret Service is in charge of all of it. And so how did a failure point like this take place when you have a building that's 150 yards away that has a direct line of the principal, which is President Trump? How does that not get covered? And so the question would be, was there resources denied? And I'm not trying to be ugly here or play politics, but we do know that the Democrats have been trying to take away the resources for the Secret Service on President Trump. So, and even though they didn't do it, was there resources requested because of the threat level that was on President Trump that was denied for them to have the personnel they needed to actually secure the perimeter like they needed to. So I think those questions need to be answered. But at the same time, when I spoke to President Trump yesterday, he was very energetic and very spoke very good praises, a lot of praises for the Secret Service, was talking about how good of a job they did and how they put their life on the line for him. So I don't think there's any type of conspiracy here. I just think that question needs to be answered.
Senator, everyone's saying we need to dial back the political rhetoric. How do we actually make sure that that happens? Do you actually think this will change anything?
I think it does. But ultimately, the only person responsible for this is the shooter. I mean, no matter what people say, no matter what happens out there, you're responsible for your own actions. But at the end of the day, we also play a role. And I say we, by the media plays a role, and political officials and those that are talking on the shows. Because if it bleeds, it leads. And so the media wants to play something that's going to get the rise out of the audience. And then at the same time, when we're speaking, we're going to try to use words that's going to get people's attention, try to get them ginned up a little bit, try to get them excited about something. And sometimes we actually build to the fire and make anger take place. And for us, what we need to do is start focusing on, one, what do we have in common as a country? On typical days, 90% of the issues out there, Republicans and Democrats will agree on. It's that 10% that we really get upset and get frustrated about. And that 10%, maybe we just won't ever get to a point of agreement. And maybe we just need to look at the things that we have in common instead of that 10% that divides us so much. But when we are talking about it, let's talk about facts and leave some of the name calling and some of the accusations out of it and just talk about the simple truths about the differences between the both parties.
Well, it seems like we're kind of waking up in a different America today. Senator Mullin, you did mention that you spoke with President Trump yesterday. What did the former president tell you? What did you say to him?
Yeah, he's actually, just like any other morning I'll speak to him, he was very energetic. He was actually cracking jokes. He actually made a joke about my ears because, I have cauliflower ear from wrestling. He says, my ears are going to be my ears are going to be messed up. Not like yours, but it's still messed up from now on. And I thought that was funny. I mean, for him to talk lighthearted about an assassination attempt, but then he also realized that it was only God that saved his life. He realized that. He said, if I wouldn't have turned my head, this would have been a different story. I turned my head just simply to look at a graph about immigration. And at that moment, I knew something was wrong because I heard something whiz between past my ear, and then I felt the pain. And yet he was still talking about his day. He was still talking about how excited he was about the crowd. I mean, he literally said that. He said, listen, how great is my supporters? Most people would have stampeded and caused all types of issues and more injuries in most crowds because that's what shootings happen. He said, but they stayed put. They were actually concerned about him. He was even talking about the guy behind him that was looking at the shooter and looking at him in the dark hat. And so he said, I couldn't believe it. He says, and then the way they reacted when I raised my hand, and he says, I just want to let them know I was okay. And they did respond. And he was just, he was talking just like any other morning, except he sounded like he was extremely grateful to be alive.
Well, it was so interesting, and as we all watched it on live TV play out, Senator Mullin, thanks so much for joining us this